Some artists follow a path, and others have to create it. Michael Key didn't come from Hollywood. He built his way in, one experiment at a time, and that path led to some of the most iconic productions in film and television. From Planet of the Apes to How the Grinch Stole Christmas to Batman and Robin and to the world of Star Trek. Working alongside legends and helping bring unforgettable characters to life. His work earned industry recognition, including multiple Emmy Awards. But he didn't stop there. He went on to shape the industry itself by launching a global makeup magazine in one of the largest makeup trade shows in the world. This is the story of an artist who built a career out of persistence, craft, and imagination. Michael Key.
You worked on an Indiana Jones movie. You worked on, with Harrison Ford would have been in that. You worked on Planet of the Apes. Mark Wahlberg would have been in that, right? Mm-hmm. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Jim Carrey. I got a couple questions actually about that one. The makeup on that's kind of nuts. Batman and Robin, got Arnold Schwarzenegger, George Clooney, Uma Thurman. Star Trek Voyager, Generation, and Deep Space Nine. That was like their main hitters when they were really cooking. And then you won a couple of Emmys. And then after all of that, you launched a makeup magazine and a trade show, which you were totally prepared for in your upbringing to do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I love this, man. I think that, like, when there's been a handful of times when I've complained about it, that I wasn't raised for this. Doggone it, I wasn't prepared for this. And then I wind up meeting people, they're like, what are you talking about? Nobody's really prepared for the life that they get. Like, everybody's got to struggle and figure it out. Of all of those projects that I just listed, or maybe I missed one, what was the one that was the most challenging?
Most challenging? Oh. Well, that's interesting. A lot of times people are asking me which one I like the best or which one I like the least. Which one was the most challenging? There were different ones that were challenging at times. Sometimes it was because of just inexperience, and all of a sudden you got the tiger.
You're inexperienced? You didn't know what you were doing?
You don't want to let go of the tail because otherwise the business end of the tiger is going to come and bite you. I can remember a time at NBC early in my career on this very forgettable TV movie called Goddess of Love. And I've got this full life-size statue of Vanna White. And, I've got this big mold. It's like a 6-foot mold, and I'm behind schedule for this film. I think it was something that was going to be like working the next day or something. And I was trying to get it all done. And Friday, at end of day, I just realized I don't have enough silicone to pour this mold. I got in there and there's more that's needed. And I'm panicking because, gosh, I need this material and the places are all going to be closed. So that's a challenge. It's not because it was a technological challenge. It was just a lack of foresight.
Yeah.
To be able to know what was needed. I'm just trying to think of things that were challenges. Sometimes the challenge is not really the job. Sometimes the challenge is the production. The production is just being a pain in the ass and unreasonable. And they think they're ordering a pizza and they don't realize what they're asking for. It can be that. It can be sometimes it's the talent. The talent is being difficult. Although I was fortunate to not have to experience that too much. Yeah. So there's different kinds of challenges that are there. But it's a job like, any other job. It's a job and you got to get things done. It's just something. The kinds of things I've worked on are just things that a lot more people are aware of.
What was the most gratifying? What was the job that you got done with and you were like, man, if every job was like this and it was just fulfilling and you were like, man, gosh, I hope this never stops. I hope they make a sequel and a sequel and a sequel.
it's one thing to be on the side watching when you're on the, looking at the screen of what that is, to something to be enjoyable, but it may be hellacious to actually shoot. Remember Richard Dreyfuss talking about making Jaws. Him saying, this looks like a movie that's more fun to watch than to make, because he's thinking, gosh, we're going to be on the water for this entire thing. It's going to be difficult. And that's the way it is in filmmaking. Sometimes it can be things that are the most famous or rememberable or cultural relevant. There we go. There's what I'll use. The things that are still the most cultural relevant for my career may not have been the most enjoyable. One of the most enjoyable things I did was a commercial for a hardware company. I got pulled into it by a friend of mine who had a makeup effects company, and this commercial was supposed to have, they wanted to have the Frankenstein's monster in there. And they even went to, that's a big deal because Universal, that's their IP. And they even got the licensing to be able to have the Frankenstein monster there. Anyways, it was going to be a makeup thing. So the appliance, the forehead appliance, the iconic kind of square looking head, that part, my friend's company had already kind of got worked out, and some of the other things that were in the commercial. But somebody needed to actually do the makeup, to actually transform this guy into Frankenstein's monster.
All right, let me break in here real quick. I am currently looking for some people to come on as guests. I'm looking for a repo man. I'm looking for somebody that is a digital nomad and lives out of their van. And I'm looking for somebody that is a lighthouse keeper. I don't want somebody that had their car repossessed. I want the person that did the repossessing. I want somebody that chose the van life. And I want to know about what it's like to be a lighthouse keeper. I want to know what these lifestyles are like. I want to know the cool part of it. I want to know the scary part of it. I want to know the surprising, liberating part of it. I want to know it all. And I want to know why you did it, why this struck you as a great idea. These are what I'm looking for this week. But if you're listening to this video 2 years from now, I'm still going to be looking for people that do this sort of thing and just like this. Down in the description is a link to the landing page where you can fill out a form. And so now I guess we're going to go back to the interview with Michael.
He says, hey, this is kind of more up your alley. Would you come and do this for us? I said, sure. I would love to do a Frankenstein's monster. Why not? And I came in on that. And commercials are really, for a project, there's a lot of chiefs in there because you've got the client, which is the hardware commercial. The hardware company has the hardware stores. They're the ones paying for it all. So they're, they certainly get They hire an advertising agency. Okay, they're the ones that are, saying, hey, we should do our commercial. We should do blah, blah, blah. So you got those chefs that are in the kitchen. And then you've got the production company that the advertising agency's hired to actually execute this. So there's tons of chefs in the kitchen. So my first part of this was to come to do a makeup test, just to kind of a look-see with the actor they have and, the piece that had been applied or been created rather for the forehead and all of that. So all these decision makers are in a room with me, a chair, makeup station, and the actor. And the actor looks nothing like Boris Karloff.
Oh, no.
The Frankenstein's monster. They got him because he was a well-known actor from another commercial. He was really funny for a beer commercial. And so he's got this long chin. And anyway, he doesn't look like Boris. So I get with them, and they're like looking at, okay, well, here, they're just kind of putting on the headpieces, setting it there, not really applying it, saying, okay, this is what this will look like, and got the bolts and whatnot. And I'm watching them all discuss and debate. They seem to be on board for the forehead. They seem to be on that. but there was a lot of scrutiny about thinking about what the wig would be like, and especially the bolts, because it's a hardware commercial. So they're obsessing over this, which is not a huge part of the makeup. It's an important part.
Yeah.
But they need to be longer. Oh, they need to be bigger.
Oh,
and
wow.
they need to be more distressed. No, it's hardware stuff, so it should look like shiny and clean and new. And so all of this discrepancy, I knew what was needed. I said, guys, I really suggest, since we only have one day to shoot this, that we really need to come in ready to execute your vision. We need to be really crystal clear on what we're going to do. I'm going to recommend that I was doing a new thing called computer makeup design.
Okay.
Fairly early, and now it's very commonplace. It's done for everything. But back then, there weren't very many people that did that. And I had been doing it. I said, we really need a visual agreement of what we're going to do.
Oh, very
and
good.
I'd like to recommend that I do this, that I create this makeup on the computer on the face of this actor. And then we meet and talk about that, and we can discuss all the nuances of that, get that locked down. So on the day, we're on target. So they agreed. So that was good. That was a victory for me, because one of the things I was lobbying for is the dude had blue eyes. And I said, he needs to have dark brown eyes, because it's looking there going, it's going to be filmed in black and white. It won't matter. And I knew that it did matter. Blue eyes and black and white still look like, they don't look like dark brown eyes. And the production, the manager person who's like already agreed to do the thing for a certain amount of money, he doesn't want any extra money being put into that. So anyway, I went back and I did this all up. Then I got back together with them and showed it to them on the computer. They're going, "Oh, that's great. Okay, make the bolt longer. Make it shorter. No, make it." So they're paying me a really good rate to sit there and move this stuff back and forth in Photoshop, and then the art director could scrutinize every little hair on the forehead. Oh, this one make this one go this way. Make this one go that way. Make this longer. Make this blah blah blah. So all of that. And then also I won the battle for the contact lenses for the actor.
Oh, good. Okay.
So I said, this is what it looks like in black and white, and this is what it looked like. And they go, oh yeah, because you make his face darker with the gray and all. So you look at those light blue eyes of his. That wasn't going to do it. So we did realize they needed to do an actual makeup test, like the full thing. So they just realized, wow, we should really, really do this. And so we did that. The day was set up, and it was for the day before we were going to do the shoot.
Okay.
So we do this makeup test. I come in, I do the makeup, I get the contact lenses get put in, everything's there. And then, and so the actor, he comes walking into the room, the boardroom where they all were, and they're all like gushing. Oh, this is great. Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, he's awesome. Oh, yeah. Oh, look. Oh, yeah, the bolts are perfect and blah, blah, blah. And then they start looking at the wardrobe. Oh, that shoulder seam. Does that need to be there? Should it be the shoes and anyway? They did a total thing of scrutinizing the wardrobe. The poor wardrobe gal had to stay up all night to completely redo the wardrobe for this character, so it'd be ready for the next morning. So for me, there was a lot of victories in. It's a commercial. They got shown a lot back in the 90s. And nobody's going to remember it now. But that was pretty satisfying for me. And it's not as well known.
There was a moment, where you were growing up and you had your first exposure to makeup and you said, wow, that's interesting. What was that moment? What was that first thing? Because you weren't raised around this stuff. You weren't raised around showbiz.
No, but I grew up watching TV. I was definitely a TV kid because I was only child for the first basic 12 years of my life. So I had a lot of interaction with television. So my first real awareness of makeup is things on television like Star Trek or other shows, Land of the Giants, Time Tunnel, The Night Stalker, different things were, I mean, very obvious, fantastic makeup. And of course, the movie Planet of the Apes, which the whole world ended up seeing, that was pretty awesome. I thought that was neat. But I loved filmmaking. I loved science fiction in general and fantasy. I thought that was pretty cool. But those were my awarenesses of makeup, and I would think about doing stuff when I was a kid, like, man, how can I make one of those Planet of the Apes kind of makeups? And I would take Play-Doh. Is it Play-Doh? No, Silly Putty. That's what it was.
Okay.
Silly Putty, because it's kind of flesh tone and color, and I just thought, well, maybe I can make something, make that muzzle. And so I took some paper, from my notebook from school and scissors and cut it and tape it and try to make a muzzle shape. And I thought, maybe I can get that Silly Putty to stick to it. And of course it was didn't work with a darn. I just didn't know what to do or what the materials were, but I had the desire. And I was a little boy in Texas, and so there was no information. So I was messing with it. But I've sent you a photo that's one of my first kind of attempts within that worked a little bit better. I had a real disdain for what those vacuum form Halloween makeups that you would buy in something what today would be a Walmart. And so there was a Wolfman Halloween costume thing, and things are the apathy of the people that made these things. It's these vacuum forms, these hard masks with the rubber band thing that's strapped. You put that on, and then it's got some satin nylon thing you step into, and your parents will tie it in the back, and it has some usually glow in the dark sort of graphic on the front. These terrible things. Like, well, I remember getting the Frankenstein's monster one on that, and I went, this isn't right. Frankenstein's monster doesn't wear a glow in the dark thing on his chest, and but I took the Wolfman one, and the face obviously doesn't articulate or anything like that, so I just cut it out.
Okay.
Took some scissors and cut away their funky face thing, so I was left with the widow's peak hair and the beard thing. And I've got it on. I think I'm maybe 8 years old or something like that, and I'm making a face with that thing on, and I've pulled my hair to try to help with it. You'll see it. It's
I look forward to that.
It's indicative of what, as a kid, where I'm really enjoying this fantasy stuff and trying to do something with it, but just don't have the information. But it wasn't until later when. In fact, if I would have, this might be interesting. If I had succeeded, I probably would have ended up being a guy that worked in props or building miniatures. Because I loved spaceships.
Oh. So
I tried to do that when I was about 18. Around that time, Star Wars had just come out, and that was amazing. Incredible spaceships now. So I've seen some photos behind the scenes from some old they're old magazines now. Yeah. But just watching guys with plastic model parts that you did as a kid, and they're just gluing all these onto a big shape and making it into these spaceships. So I was inspired. I thought, man, I wonder if I can do that. So I took some cardboard from boxes and cut them into it to make the basic shape, and spent all this time to create this ship. And then started to put some of the parts on and everything. But when I went to put my first coat of paint on it, spraying it, it revealed that it's corrugated cardboard. It's not perfectly flat. And it was never going to be perfectly flat. So I realized my foundation was completely flawed, and I just got discouraged and gave up.
But that's funny because you, like most kids would have been like, oh, that's the way it is. And having standards like that straight out of the gate, that's pretty irregular. So you're screwing around as a kid with your Halloween mask. You mess around a little bit as an 18-year-old. But did you go to school? Did you get any kind of education? Did you just show up and like how did you dumb your way in? You just like bumble and somebody said, "Come on."
Well, back then there weren't schools for any of
Okay.
this. It's not the way. I mean, later on, people created schools for it, but there wasn't that back then for things that were makeup effects or things that were for visual effects because they were just making it up as they went along, and then they would just bring people in. So no, there wasn't that linear path that a lot of vocations have. For me, what was a turning point for me was in the late '80s. The movie Alien
Okay.
came out, and it's Ridley Scott's masterpiece and pretty amazing. And I found a magazine. It was a brand new magazine, behind the scenes movie making magazine, and it covered a couple of movies. I think it was Alien and Star Trek: The Motion Picture. So this is probably about 1985 or
Okay.
something, somewhere there. So Alien been out for a few years,
Yeah.
but I was looking at it and I thought that face hugger was very compelling. I thought, wow, that thing is amazing. It looks so anatomically plausible to me. It looks like this could be
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that would have lived during prehistoric times or something. And then there was in this magazine there was a paragraph saying, well, we sculpted it in clay and then we made an armature, to have some structure to it, and then we put the armature in a mold and had, with rubber, and so it's this basic real description, but in my mind's eye I could kind of picture that, and I thought, I wonder if I could make one of those for fun. So I went to the hobby store and got clay and some kind of armature wire and plaster and some liquid latex rubber, and I just kind of bumbled through trying to make this. It took me about 7 weeks, but the end of it, I had this kind of crude version of that face hugger, and I didn't tell anybody I was doing. I kept the whole thing a secret and just had a blast scaring the pants off all my friends with it. It
Wow.
was so much fun. And then there was a guy who offered to buy it, and was offering me actually what I thought was pretty good money, especially for me. I was just a young dude making minimum wage.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, I won't sell you this one because it's got sentimental value, but I'll make you one that's a lot better. And he agreed to it because I already figured out all the missteps I
Sure.
had and how
Yeah.
I could improve upon it. So I made him one and it was much better. So through that, I went, okay, cool. I've kind of done this. None of my friends would believe I actually made it. They said,
That's funny.
that's awesome. Where did you get that? And I said, I made it. Yeah. Where did you get that? And they wouldn't believe me till I showed them my crude molds that I'd
Yeah.
used to make it. So when Halloween started coming up, I thought, I wonder if I can, this newfound experience I have in sculpting and making a mold and rubber and all that. I thought, maybe I can make like a really cool Halloween makeup. So I thought, maybe I'll make one Planet of the Apes makeup, what I'd wanted to do when I was a kid and couldn't
Oh,
do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
I can do it now. But it was much more expensive materials and a bit more sophisticated process. And so I didn't have the money because a lot of stuff was in bulk to buy that. And I was a poor kid. So I did a prehistoric version of crowdfunding. I went to my friends and say, hey, give me some money and I'll make you a custom makeup too. So I got
Yeah.
them to all chip in money and I was
Uh,
able to buy the materials.
uh,
And then I had fun doing that, and some of them were okay, some were awful looking. They're
uh-huh.
terrible. But I thought, the guys that do this for the movies, they probably make a good living, and it's a lot better than my day job. So I just started going around to different makeup effect shops because I lived in LA. So, I'd be driving along and see, a place or find out about a place where they do that kind of work, and I would show up and just say, "Hey, that looks pretty cool. What are you making there?" And just kind of start talking them up. and say, "Oh, that's," and then may ask them some questions. He said, "Oh, it sounds like you know something about this." And, well, I'm trying. I'm doing this, and I pull out some of my dumb pictures. And they go, "Oh, okay. Well, here, let's show you." Sometimes they would give
Huh?
me a little tour, or they were very
Yeah.
kind and gracious. And eventually, I got a place to actually hire me to come and do some grunt work that nobody else wanted to do. It was not a lot of money, but it was more money than what I was making, so I was happy for that.
Oh,
But I was doing things like one of the first thing I got paid for was working on. We had two projects in for this one makeup effect shop. They had a commercial that had a shark in it, and it also they were doing a TV movie with Barbara Eden. It was the Stepford Children, which was like the third and somebody trying to make something in that franchise. And so I'm, this giant shark, kind of like Jaws shark type of thing. And I got this big fiberglass mold that I'm having to try to like get all the clay and everything out of it, like mining through a dirty,
oh man.
thankless job and kind of getting all that together. But then I went to set with it. But that was a turning point, though. It's really important because there's a big difference from, hey, I want to be a makeup artist, or I want to work in film, and I got things I've been doing as a hobby. There's a big difference from that to going, I'm a makeup artist, I just finished this job and I'm looking for my next gig. See the
Oh,
difference?
yeah,
There's
yeah.
a contrast there. That's a really, really important one to for somebody in a creative industry when they actually have been paid for it. Then because people will take you a lot more serious then.
No, that was actually something that I was actually one of the next questions because you kind of went through what I was planning to ask. Um, I wanted to know about was there a what like you were actually just talking about it, getting into hustle mode. You're like because these are projects. This isn't, the closest that you would have to a real job would have been the Star Trek stuff. Um, all of the rest of the stuff is, we're making a movie, and when we finish making the movie, you got to go find a new job. So walk me through how you dumbed into this place. They said, "Hey, cool, cheap labor, um, somebody who's kind of hungry to learn. You shine a little bit, and now you're like, I'm guessing at this point that you're kind of hooked, and you're like, I want this to be a career. Walk me through the hustle part until you got actually like somebody said, "Hey, your phone rang, and it wasn't because you initiated something. Somebody came to you and said, you got to check this guy out. He's doing good work."
Well, for context, I wasn't thinking this was going to be like my career and what I did. I wanted to be a musician. And
Okay.
so I was going after that 100 miles an hour since I was 14. I was going after it. But I need a better day job than the crap jobs I did have.
Mm.
And so I thought, yeah, so I really did want to do this. I thought this is great. It was much more affirming and fulfilling, and obviously being compensated better than the garbage
Yep.
jobs that I was working. So that part was good. But in the beginning, I mean, all this stuff, if you work in film, it's a gig industry. Nobody has like a
Yeah.
permanent job. It's not like the old 1950s or something where you're working for Chevy
Yeah. Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
work there until they give you your pension. So in the entertainment industry, you're only really as good as your last gig. So there was a time. It's not like I got that one job and then I started working in film throughout. It took several years to be able to kind of build up my network
Mm.
of people to hire me. And also, I had to learn. I was really, really green. There's a lot that I didn't know.
Mm.
So that takes time. And then also back then, because now we're talking. This is the getting into late '80s. Still at that time, most motion pictures and television that was worth anything were union projects, and I was not in the union. So that was a barrier that needed to be overcome.
Got it.
And it takes a long time. It took a good
Did
long
you
time.
join a union?
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay.
I realized right away when I started thinking about, okay, what projects would I want to work on that have already come out? All those were union projects. Almost nothing was non-union for back then. So it's like, if I really want to do the kind of work I want to do, then I need to be in the union. So it was all, there was a goal there to be able to do that. I finally did. What year was it? I think it was 1990. It's when, I'm probably getting ahead of myself. Should say it was an important thing when I finally got a job working at NBC Studios. And I've been doing a bunch of little things, and then I got this job working at NBC because they didn't really know how to do prosthetics or anything. They
Okay.
did. It was mostly game shows is what they had,
Mm.
the news and game shows, and so they would have the occasional thing that Dick Clark would want to do or something. So I got in on that, and that actually was a game changer for me because they said, "Well, why don't you come in and show us how you do these prosthetic makeups, and we'll teach you beauty and television makeup." So
Mm.
that was great. I had the top makeup artists at NBC teaching me that, and so I became a more of a full service makeup artist instead of just being an effects guy. So we would come in on while they're doing the Tonight Show or Wheel of Fortune. They get done with their makeups and their people go to set, and then I would get some girl that I've brought in say, "Hey, would you want to? I'm learning makeup. You want to come to NBC Studios and get your makeup done?" So that was
Uh-huh.
you usually could find plenty of willing women that would do that,
Sure.
and they would teach me how to do beauty makeup, which was a fabulous education. And that's really the more traditional way that makeup artists learned from other makeup artists on the
Oh,
job.
that's interesting. Now you're doing stuff on Star Trek. How did you get into the Star Trek franchise? I'm assuming that you got into one, and then it just kind of jumped into the other two.
In the union, a show like Star Trek can only bring a non-union person in if all the union people are working. That's a safety valve to protect the union
Yeah,
makeup
yeah.
artists. And thinking when it comes to prosthetics, out of that pool of makeup artists, only a small percentage of that pool knew how to do appliance and prosthetics
Okay.
and do things like that. So that once in a while they could go off list, and that's when I could get in there.
Oh,
And so I did work. Part of me building up enough experience to get in the union was working those non. I was working as a non-union makeup artist once in a while on Star
okay.
Trek: Next Generation, Alien Nation, which was a TV show
Yeah.
back then, and a few other shows here and there. So that's where I got to know those folks and get my foot in the door. But once I had amassed enough body of work to be able to apply with the producers. It's called contract services. That's an arm of the producers side of the business that handles that. And so you apply to be what's called on the roster. And they
Okay.
look at it all and see if you have all the requirements for that. And I finally had submitted that, and I was working on Star Trek Six, The Undiscovered Country. I was working for Richard Snell, who was in charge of the makeup effects over the film. So I was at his shop sculpting Klingons and Vulcans and
Yeah.
making molds and these special background masks for Klingons to be on. So I was working doing that when I finally was approved. And so that was cool. So the first time I worked on a motion picture as an actual makeup artist with the union was Star Trek Six.
Wow.
So that
Okay.
was a big deal. So once I crossed that threshold,
Hmm.
then they could hire me. They
Got
wanted to
it.
hire
Okay.
me, but they couldn't. But now I
Yeah, yeah.
qualified, and so that then I started
Mm.
working on all kinds of union shows. I worked on Star Trek as a franchise for about 7 years. Worked on the Coneheads, worked on so many movies, Patriot Games,
Ah,
all the things that you saw on IMDb. That was
yeah, yeah.
really opened the floodgate, and I could really work full time as a makeup artist.
So, you know what? Okay, so there's two things um, that I'm looking at. When I'm looking at how the Grinch Stole Christmas, the makeup on that is completely nuts on pretty much every single character. They all have sort of a version that makes them look like they belong in that world.
Well, that was a cool movie to have worked on, not just because people still remember it,
Mm,
but for me. But at that time, it was the largest team of makeup artists that had ever worked on a film. It was more
mm.
than The Wizard of Oz, and it was huge. We had stages at Universal, entire huge sound stages that are just rows and rows and rows of makeup and hair stations. It was an army to be and it was great to be a part of that. To me, this was like a historic moment
Yeah, yeah.
in makeup, and the sets were just a complete fantasy world,
Mm.
much like Wizard of Oz, to not overuse the analogy, but it it was a created world in there, and then every single person in the film wore a prosthetic makeup. Except, were there any kids? No, I think even the kids have. It's been a little bit since I've seen it. I really think every single character is wearing an appliance and
Yeah.
prosthetic makeup. So that was a wonderful thing to be a part of. I was glad to be that. And I was just one of like 75 makeup artists that was doing it. By this time, I already had my company, so I'm producing trade shows and publishing the magazine.
Oh,
But
wow.
what they did for me is I would come in the morning, get my who's done, make up two, three, four who's, how many ever it was, and then that be all done. Go to set for a while, be there and be a part of the team that's kind of maintaining the makeups, and then doing the after lunch touch ups. They've all eaten, and
Oh,
now
yeah.
I got to
Okay.
kind of repair that. So once we were done with the after lunch touch ups, they would let me go, and I could go to the office and run my business.
Another one that kind of stands out to me is Planet of the Apes. Like just super memorable makeup um, in that. Just the muzzles and all that goes into that. You don't show up with a whole bunch of muzzles that have been manufactured in China or like what? How are these? How are the muzzles sculpted and made? And then is there something that I would be surprised at with respect to like the application of them?
Yeah, Planet of the Apes. That one's Tim Burton's film with Mark Wahlberg playing the lead role. Academy Award winning makeup artist Rick Baker was hired to create the makeups for that. And
Okay.
he was definitely the go to guy for it because he's so into apes and anything with hair on it,
Okay.
he really excels at. So they hired Rick to do that. So I was part of his team for that. And the portion of the film that I was out there for was in Death Valley. So
Okay.
I used to, camp in the desert when I lived in California, and knew that area pretty well. But it was one thing to like camp in the desert, and another thing to be doing makeup and filming in the desert.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit different. But it was cold. It's one thing you don't really see in the film is how cold it was, and
Okay.
it was very, very cold and frigid out there. And kind of harsher conditions as the desert is. Nothing is really groundbreaking in as far as the way the makeups were applied or whatnot. The real genius of it is the sculptures are brilliant. They're really wonderful because Rick and the people who he had sculpting those were the very best in the business.
Hmm.
And so the artistic choices and all of that were just exceptional. They've got good talent. That's one thing about Rick is he's the quality that he just demands. He gets that from the filmmakers He can create the situation for greatness to happen. That has to do with the budget, so you have the money to do it and the time to create it properly, and then then the conditions to actually execute it for principal photography. And he was one of the best ever at that.
From time to time, you'll hear about an actor who was looking at a script, and then they looked at it and they said, "This is stupid. This isn't a movie for me." And they turn it down, and somebody else gets it, and it turns into some blockbuster mega hit. Is there anything that you ever turned down that you look back and go, "Gosh, it was reasonable that I turned it down. I remember why I turned it down, but gosh, I can't believe that thing went on to be a big hit."
Not so much. I mean, yeah, I've heard those kind of stories from actors as well that turn things down. I think the closest thing to that is I was asked to come work on Jim Carrey's movie called The Mask.
Okay.
And the department head makeup artist called me and asked me to come work on it. But it was a non-union film, and the rate they were paying was definitely below what I was making. And I had work that I could do, and so I didn't feel like, I want to go and work on this, for why take a cut and pay for this?
Yeah, yeah.
So I turned it down, and that turned into a good film. But if I had to make the same decision today, I would still make the same decision.
Yeah.
It was keep working what I'm doing. It's like Babylon 5. They had some really nice work on that film, but it was a non-union show. And so they're paying a lot less. So why do that when I can work on projects where I am being paid well?
Got it. I had a vague remembrance of you being involved passingly with Pirates of the Caribbean.
Hmm?
So what did you do there, and how long did you stay on that, or because that wasn't. I don't think that was in the list of things that you did.
It should be. It should be on IMDb, but I don't know. Sometimes I don't look at it very often, and once in a while something will fall off and go, "Hey, what the heck? How come that's not on?"
No, I actually, you know what? I should have looked there, but I looked at Wikipedia, and it wasn't listed as on Wikipedia.
I haven't looked at my Wikipedia in, gosh, years. In fact, I forgot it was there. I'll have to take a look. Pirates of the Caribbean. I remember when that was announced. They said, it was on the radio. Walt Disney Studios is going to make motion picture live action films of their amusement park rides, The Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean. And I'm thinking, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't make movies based on your rides. Make rides based on your great movies.
Yeah.
This is not the right way to do this. And I was right for Haunted Mansion. Never even saw it, even though they had incredible people working on it. It was a complete flop. It's because you need, film is about story. That's the heart of it. You got to have a great story. But Pirates of the Caribbean, I got called to come work on it. Oscar winner V. Neal, makeup artist, and she asked if I would come work on it. I said, sure, I'll come work on it. So I went out to, it was near Long Beach, California, I forget. We were shooting these fort scenes. And I never saw Johnny Depp. He wasn't part of any of the scenes that for the days I was there. But I did see Keira Knightley. She was there. I never had heard of her before, and I was just kind of watching her. And I'm going, this girl's going to be something. She seems to really check all the boxes. She's got game. But I was watching the way they were filming this. I thought, the tongue is not in the cheek on this very much. They're serious. They're trying to make a legit film here. So maybe this will be okay. And they did. I did get called to come back. V asked me to come work on the pirate ship, but they were shooting that in what we call the Dome. It's next to the Queen Mary ship in Long Beach.
Oh, okay.
It's where they used to have the Spruce Goose, which is now in McMinnville.
Yeah.
after the plane left and moved, they've used that for various things, especially for motion pictures that
Wow.
need
Okay.
a big enough space. So they had the pirate ship in there, but they were going to be shooting all nights. And I was
Oh.
in deadlines for my magazine and whatnot, and I was like, I said, V, I would love to come work on this for you, but I can't do all nights right now. I said,
Yeah. Yeah.
please call me back when, let me do a rain check. Call me back when, you've got some stuff during the day. I'm sorry, but I can't do nights right now. Okay. I'll call you then. And she never called me back to work on it.
Hmm.
And then when I saw it in the movie theater, I went, dang, this is a really great movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's probably the closest thing as an answer for you for
Hmm.
what that is. I really do wish I would have contributed more to that film because I think it's a fantastic movie.
You told me that you're semi-retired, um, and so I'm assuming that you don't go work on projects anymore. Um,
You didn't even
but
talk about my magazine and my trade shows.
no, no, no. Hey, I like that's on page 3. I'm still on
Oh,
page 1.
so you were talking about my
Um,
retirement before we talk about that? Okay, all right.
no, well, no. So what I wanted to know was when you go to the movies, is there something that you're looking for that the rest of us don't even think to look for with the makeup?
Mm. Like first and foremost, when I watch as a movie fan. I'm
Okay.
watching as to see the movie, but I do have an educated eye. I know how
Yeah.
things are done. So if it's something exceptionally well done, or pretty bad, where something should have been a lot better, or
Hmm.
something that's out of sorts, then that'll take me out, and I'll really notice that. But mostly, I'm watching, just seeing it as a project. What is this
Oh,
thing,
that's
and
really good.
am I enjoying it?
Is there any detail when you're watching a movie that makes you really happy when you see it done right?
Oh yeah, sure. Anytime there's something exceptional, it's like, wow, that is so cool. My friend Mike Hill just got himself an Oscar for doing uh, Gil. See a little dyslexic and it starts to come out. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. He just
Okay.
won an Oscar for, and this is really some fantastic work that he did. Very, very ambitious work. It was more difficult to achieve that than probably people understand. So that's wonderful. I remember when back in the day when Harry and the Hendersons, when I watched that, and I just went, "This is amazing,
Hmm.
amazing." Rick Baker
Oh yeah, yeah,
creating
yeah,
the Sasquatch character,
yeah.
and watching the expressions and how much articulation it had, and just going, "That's why he's Rick Baker, man. That's incredible." Or another one of Rick's I really like. One of my favorite character makeups of all time is on Eddie Murphy for Coming to America, where he plays the old Jewish man. He's in the barber shop, and
Okay.
Eddie's sitting there, and it's Eddie Murphy, who's a black man, and he's playing this old Jewish man, and it's just amazing. This fantastic makeup. It worked so well. That kind of thing can be just just beautiful and staggering. Those things are great. So yeah, I still look at those things and are awesome. Then there's things I look at, they're terrible. Usually they're commercials. Going, really?
Oh.
Really?
Okay.
They're letting that crap go by? It's like, wow, that's bad. Or even some TV shows I've seen, like Beards. It's like, oh, is that a
Oh.
dead cat on that guy's face? Come on, come on. Why couldn't they, done a good job on that, or an age makeup, or different things I see. So I can be a little more critical of those things a bit because like they could have hired somebody to do a good job with it.
Hmm. Are there any processes that have been phased out that you look back like nostalgically and say, "Wow, gosh, yeah, that was a pain in the butt, and yeah, but man, that was really satisfying," or something that stands out to you
Yeah,
that
the industry is changing a lot. We went through a phase of some bad CGI making characters. You know, we can all name those things. It was this awkward
Sure.
phase where filmmakers, well, we'll just have this digital character, and
Where the light didn't match and the scale kept changing, and yeah.
well, yeah, it's things where people might not be able to articulate why it's fake to
Yes.
them, but all they know is that that looks fake. Because especially when it
Yeah.
comes to humans, because we're
We look at them a lot.
like a bad age makeup. Like we see old people every day.
Yeah.
You know, you see them in the grocery store, you see them wherever, and you'll look. And they might not be able to say why that makeup doesn't look real to
Yes.
them, or the illusion is not working, but they just know that it looks fake to them. So people still look at that part of it. They try to do things that maybe they shouldn't have, and they could have done it better. Or somebody thinks it's the magic bullet. Think, okay, great, we'll do it in CGI, so everything will be
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, it's not the magic bullet for that. It has to be the appropriate use of it,
Yes.
and it takes a great filmmaker to understand which tool to use to be able to tell the story. And it's that discernment and that experience and insight and knowledge that allows something to look convincing and still hold up. There's plenty of films we watch and things that don't hold up. But things that have gone away, that like sculpture is kind of going away. Being able to sculpt these makeups in clay.
Okay.
They're moving so fast and they want it so soon. They're thinking they're ordering that pizza again.
Yeah.
That sometimes, especially for television, they're sculpting on the computer. They're trying to eliminate some steps in the process. And even just taking a cast of the actor's face in some places. My friend Louis Zakarian, who heads up Saturday Night Live, they don't do a traditional live cast anymore. They just come in and scan the actor. There's things that they're doing. So some of these processes are going away. Some of them are exciting. I think they're great advances. Some of them, not so much. I hate that people are not sculpting in clay as much. That's going away. That and even making molds. They're 3D printing molds.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that what's the technology? It's 3D. I'm guessing. Okay, so level with me. In Mission Impossible, they have the mask making machines. Those aren't real, are they?
No, and it's not like how it was in the 60s where they took out the aerosol can and sprayed, and it made a whole mask of the person, including the eyebrows and the mustache, came out of that aerosol can. Audiences have become a little bit more sophisticated.
All right, I'm still. I know I'm watching a movie, but like you kind of pop me out of like the fact that I don't want to feel like I'm watching a movie.
Oh, I feel the same thing like for the Iron Man thing where he's got a briefcase. I mean, remember in the first Iron Man movie?
Oh,
I know we're
baby.
getting away from makeup, but that was pretty cool and maybe seemed a
Yeah.
little bit more based in reality about putting the different pieces on. And there's all
Yeah.
these automated robots to bolt him in and get him all set.
Yeah.
And then by the second or third film, he's got like a briefcase, and he
Yes.
throws down the briefcase, and he gets the whole
Yes.
suit out of a briefcase, including those big honking boots that are supposed to be jet engines. You wouldn't even be able to fit the boots in that thing. And then they get the watch where it just becomes an entire hand.
Yeah. No, I remember those movies when every time they'd elevate him like that, they'd just, do his pack a little differently, and you're like, oh yeah, come on. Okay,
Yeah.
so I actually wanted to ask you about CGI versus makeup. There's a time and a place for both of them. Um, can you remember a movie that you watched and you couldn't figure out which it was, whether it was
No.
makeup? No?
No, I'm always aware of. I mean, if it's really an on-screen character that's not somebody that's just walking in the background or something, but when they're they're up close. I'm aware of what's a makeup and what is not. Not too often am I being fooled by that. But there's times when it's like, wow. The first time I thought it actually really worked to have an organic, articulate character on screen that was digital. That was Gollum in The
Oh,
Lord of the
okay.
Rings.
Yeah.
And I was bummed because I know the guy who did it. The reason why it worked, it wasn't because of the computer guys. They had a part of Weta in New Zealand, part of they're a company that's very diverse in multiple disciplines, and they have a complete CGI side of their company, but they also have a practical side. And my friend Gino Acevedo, been just amazing artist. He came up with the first sculpture of Gollum, and he painted it, a maquette, so they could
Okay.
have it to scan to use that as a template for what they were going to do. And he's
Okay.
an amazing painter. And he created all this layered, even though it's opaque material, he creates this translucent paint job on this whole thing to create Gollum. And then he gave that to the computer guys, and okay, this is what it should be. And they tried and tried and tried to be able to simulate that, and they couldn't do it.
Mm.
So they finally came back to Gino and said, "Hey, how did you paint that thing?" He said, "Oh, well, here, I'll show you." And he would do and try to show them how he's using airbrush and he's layering and creating translucency. And they're going, "Yeah, this is too complicated for us.
Yeah.
How about, can we bring a computer in your shop, and maybe you can do this in the computer how you're doing it with airbrush and everything else, because we can't do that." So it started that way, but slowly but surely they pulled him to the dark side and him being in the CGI. But that's the reason why Gollum looks as amazing as he is. And I don't want to take
Yeah.
anything away from Andy Serkis's performance, because it's really fantastic. But the reason why it wasn't Jar Jar is because of,
Jar Jar.
and I went, damn, this is like, I'm believing this character.
Yeah.
I'm watching him and reacting to him as
That's
a
the
real
movie that's
character.
easy to get lost in, where like there's not a whole lot of things that distract you from the fact that you're watching a movie.
That was
Um,
brilliant. Benjamin Button, when you saw that thing too, because you got Brad Pitt at different ages, and obviously he couldn't be a little kid size, and so they're putting Brad's head on different performers, and they're doing all that, and it worked pretty well. It looked
mm.
pretty darn good.
What do you think the influence of AI is going to be?
Well, it does do image generation. See,
Mm.
AI is doing that, and it's getting better. Some of
Mm.
it looks, it's in the infancy of it, so some of it doesn't work when
Yes.
somebody's got 7 fingers on one hand, and it
Yeah.
gets details wrong. But that's short lived. Obviously, that stuff will go away, and they're getting better at it, and they are animating it. So I think I don't really see it having as much impact on the makeup industry.
Mm.
I see it having more impact on the CGI industry, the
Mm.
visual effects people. That, in fact, the visual effects supervisor on Star Trek Next Generation, I remember a conversation we had once. I was talking about the physical ships, miniatures, to now doing it with computer, and them doing more of the computer work to create the visual effects instead of the analog way. And he said something to me that stuck with me. He says, "Well, yes, the technology makes those with lesser talents to be able to achieve the same results."
Oh. Mm. Yeah.
So yeah, you can, and it's true. You can do
Yeah.
things that somebody had to be an award-winning filmmaker to be able
Mm.
to do, and now you can do it on your phone. So that's happening. But I don't really see an AI having nearly as big of an impact on the makeup side of things. There's other things that'll
Yeah.
impact that.
Well, unless it just deletes some some things where they just go, let's just do this in CGI versus makeup. If it gets that good, is
Well, it's
your
different
camera?
CGI
Go ahead.
versus AI, so it's two different worlds.
Oh
CGI
yeah.
is requiring humans to do that. AI is computers doing it,
Oh. Yeah.
and
Yeah. I think
yeah,
I kind of meant as a tool in the makeup industry. Um, but but yeah, I think you actually answered that when you talked about creating images. I wanted to go through the cabinet of curiosities. I know that in there you've got doubloons, you've got the idol from the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I know that you've got a couple of Emmy awards in there.
the cabinet is a combination of things that are uh, things from my career, souvenirs from my
Yeah, yeah.
time in film, and my travels. I would say there's that category, and then there's another category that is props and things from films that I greatly appreciate.
Okay.
Love props and those. So like the top shelf, so I can look at it in my mind's eye, and maybe you can use this dialogue over the video. So the top
Yeah.
shelf is really about mid 20th century. You have the Maltese Falcon. You have the
Mm.
fertility idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Hmm.
You've got the bottoms up shot glass that's in there. That's Vaseline glass. It's UV. There's the sandbag that Indiana Jones has to put
Mm.
over
Yeah, yeah.
to get that. So all those things on the top shelf are things of the mid 20th century. The ones that have significance that are maybe stand out is the Idol of Fertility and the Maltese Falcon because I made both those. Those were props that were very available in Hollywood, but they were wrong. They
Oh.
had flaws. It just drove me crazy that the Maltese Falcon bird is some sculpture that's not the one in the movie, but that's where you threw a rock in Hollywood, you would find one of those damn things. So finally, I got tired of looking at the thing being wrong and just sculpted it myself to be
Mm.
correct. And then I started selling them on eBay, which is great because it bought me some guitars. So there's that sculpture, and then the other one was the fertility idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is not the ones that were being passed around Hollywood were not the version of what's in the film. So that bothered me too. So I took and corrected that and then sold those for a bit to other people that are great lovers of that film as I.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the top shelf. The next shelf down is kind of a sci-fi shelf, and there's things in there. There's the flashy thingy from Men in Black. There's one of my prized possessions is Luke Skywalker's lightsaber from the first Star Wars movie, which I've had since 1980. And there's a whole story just with that thing. Then there's Darth Vader's lightsaber that's in there.
Hold up. Were those in the movie?
They were not actually used in the movie, but they're
Okay.
they're the same thing that did use in the movie,
Okay.
because they're especially the Luke one I have. It's mostly a flash unit from a 1940s press camera. So that's a very very important thing that helped me get in the industry because I had to learn how to do research and
Mm.
we could do a whole talk just on that. And then there's also some of my toys in there, just a few that survive. There's almost nothing from my childhood, but there's some major Matt Mason stuff in there. And there's one of the Thunderbird toys from that TV show. There's also in the back, there's these these medallions that were given to me when I was working on Planet of the Apes, and for the Red Army and what's the other armies? The Black Army. You had the chimps and the gorillas, and each had their own something that the guys made themselves. It wasn't really in the film. It was more of an inside baseball thing that they had, and they gave me those. And so there's that stuff in there. And you talked about the gold medallion from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
That's awesome, to remind me from that film. I've also got a cool thing. It's a prop that I bought That's the gold coins from the John Wick franchise.
Oh, no kidding.
It's such an important thing, that currency. What's weird is how little you almost never see them in the movie, but
Yeah.
everybody knows about them because it's a big deal when
Yeah.
it gets passed on. But you usually don't really see the coin itself.
Huh.
But I've got some of those, and what are other things that are in there? There's things. There's the bolt from the Frankenstein makeup I did for the
Okay.
hardware commercial. That's in there. There's a piece of glass. It's a glass palette that I was given because I did the pilot episode for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So the department head gave me
Okay.
that. He gave those to us as wrap gifts. That's in there. There's also a solid silver soup ladle that used to belong to Errol Flynn.
Oh, huh.
And it's got his initials on it, and all of that that's in there. There's a whole story with that thing, how that came to be. And of course, there's my Emmys, and then I have my the next shelf down is my Emmys and my Blade Runner shelf because I'm a big Blade Runner fan.
Okay.
So I've got the gun from Blade Runner. I did a reproduction of that. I've got that special Johnny Walker bottle that was used for the film, which is unlike anything else. That was a big deal to get. I've got the little unicorn folded paper thing that's in there, and there's just a bunch of stuff. Hit Deckard's ID and badge shield and things that's on that. There's a bunch of Blade Runner stuff because I got to see. I was very fortunate before I got in the industry. I got to see Blade Runner at the Motion Picture Academy about a week before it was released.
Wow.
Loved the film and been a fan of it ever since.
Wow.
So I've got a bunch of Blade Runner stuff, the glass that Harrison Ford drinks out of, the square glass, the rocks glass.
Wow.
Bunch of that stuff. My next shelf down is my Star Trek shelf. So that I've got
Okay.
pieces, there's graphics and pieces of the Enterprise for when that got tore down. I took a few things there for that. And same thing for Deep Space Nine. When that got torn down, I've got pieces of the floor and other things that are there. Also, one of the action figures of a character that I designed, which that's kind of special to me because it was kind of cool to think that a guy in a toy factory is looking at pictures of my sculpture, my makeup, and he's sculpting that thing in miniature. He's looking at that and make it smaller. So that's kind of cool for me to have,
Yeah.
to have that. And like little comm badges and also pins that were given just to the crew, very special things commemorating 10 years or things. So there's different Star Trek stuff in there. Also different characters actors who played characters that gave me things, and whatnot. So there's a whole Star Trek shelf. And then the very bottom one is just of the case is just all these passes to movie premieres,
Yeah.
special screenings, or on set, passes to go on to the studio to shoot something, or even a few that I visited. So that's kind of the case. So maybe some of this voiceover role.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be doing that. Okay, so you had made a comment how there was a job that you couldn't do because because it was going to be like an all-nighter and you couldn't pull all-nighters. What was the physical toll on you in some of these cases, and what was the toll that it had on like your household? Because I'm sure that like you're not working a 9 to 5, you're not working at the sugar factory, you know, and so like it's all over the place, I'm guessing. So what are the what's the pain and the toll that people don't know about?
Yeah, when you work in the industry for doing motion pictures and television, yeah, it's not a 9 to 5. It's a little bit like joining the Foreign Legion. You join that thing and they own you till they're done with you. So when
Okay.
I'd be working on shows, it wasn't uncommon I mean, 12 hours was typical day. And then at least that. So, if you only had to work at 12, that's fine. But there's days where I work 16 hours.
Mm.
And so they're super long. And if that wasn't enough, when you don't know when you're going to wrap, so you just don't know when you start your day
Oh, that's
and you
interesting.
do your day and you're going, and you don't know when they're going to cut you loose for the day.
Yeah.
And it might be sooner or it might be shorter or later. Just it all depends. But you don't know what time you have to come in the next day. They give you what's kind of a preliminary call sheet, which has everybody's call times on it. There's the preliminary, but if you're getting off before crew wraps earlier in the day, and oftentimes the makeup artists we're like some of the first people in because we got to get
Yeah.
everybody made up. So I'm making people up. So I might be cut loose at 8 o'clock at night, and they might be saying, "Okay, it's going to be a 4 a.m. call for the next day."
Wow.
And then at some point in the night, a phone call is made and saying, "Okay, we're pushing till 8," or something else.
Oh.
So the time will change. So you don't
Mm.
know when you're going to have to come in the
Yeah.
next day. And oftentimes it's just you barely get what's called your turnaround, which is about 8 hours. So if they wrap you at midnight, then they can't bring you in before 8 o'clock. Otherwise, that's called a forced call.
Hmm.
That's the term
Yeah.
for that. That means they have to pay me double time the whole next day. And unit
Oh.
production managers don't want to pay a makeup artist double time. So I only got a forced call, I think, twice in my career.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't do
Yeah.
that unless they really, 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 really need to. So it's long hours. If you work on episodic television for back then, you were doing 60 to 70-hour weeks.
Ooh.
So you don't have a lot of time to have a life, really
Yeah.
much of anything. And then Fridays, they would oftentimes call those Fraturdays because it would be going into you almost might see the sun come up for Saturday when you're
Yeah.
getting off at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, the show's got to go on. The show's got to get done, and
And
there's a
so,
lot of money involved.
you're not human until halfway through the day on Saturday. You get to sleep, and then you got laundry to do, and some life to do. And then I had a month there on Star Trek where every Monday my call time was either 1:12 a.m. or 1:42 a.m.
Wow.
So your Sunday night, you're thinking, okay, I'm trying to get to sleep so I can have some rest before I got to get up. It's almost like you're going to work on Sunday night.
Uh huh.
So that is long. The hours are very, very long. As far as
How did it affect your family life though? I mean, that's got to have had.
it was, well, it wasn't easy, but that was before I had kids. When I was really when I was working full time before I started my company. So my wife, she would just flex with that and
Mm.
do some things without me and whatnot.
Sure.
Luckily for me, I didn't travel as much as
Oh.
on productions. I think the longest I was gone was on Young Riders. I think I was out there maybe 6 weeks,
Oh,
and that
dang.
was the
Okay.
longest. But a lot of my friends and colleagues have worked. They've worked really very,
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
long time,
No, you
months.
watch like the making of Star Wars, and you're like in Tunisia for 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was actually kind of leading into the next question. Did you ever get to introduce your wife or your kids to um, any celebrities, or bring them on set, or take them with you to some exotic location? Did that ever happen?
Not on the film side. I did for IMATs. I was able to do that, but in working on film production, no, you don't bring your family to set. It's not
Got
what it is. You're there to do a job, and they don't want that. It was a couple of times I brought my wife, and it was my first wife, and she was very uncomfortable on a film set. Didn't know where to stand, didn't know
Oh,
where to be, and she did not enjoy that at all. There's but no, the as far as taking family places, that happened more with my company.
with respect to things like your Emmy awards, you won two of them. Um, were there any of those nights that you were at the awards, you were nominated for something, and you were like looking at the competition going, yeah, I'm pretty sure that we're going to get smoked. Um, they did something that I still don't understand, or, it's something that you were actually quite amazed at. Was there something that where you didn't win, but you like had to tip your hat to it and say, wow, that was amazing.
Well, first of all, we should say that awards are they're political things.
Mm.
It's not, sometimes you win for something that maybe wasn't your best work, but you won.
Oh,
But there's times maybe you did something that was the best thing, but somebody else got it, and it's
yeah.
different. And Oscars and Emmys are done differently. Emmys are done completely by they're peer related. So nomination and voting for the win is all done by people within your craft, which is makeup artists and hairstylists.
Mm.
Oscars is more political. You're nominated by your peers, but the who wins is the Academy at large. So you got thousands of film professionals all voting, and they don't take too
Wow.
long to scrutinize which one they want to vote for makeup. That's not usually the one of their ones that they dwell on. That's like about a 4 second decision for them where they're going on it.
Oh,
So it's different.
okay.
So
So walk me through. Okay, so you've been to Emmys, you've been to Oscar awards, right? You've been to both shows. Which one would you say was the coolest? And can you walk me through like when you went? I'm sure that there were some things that you were like, "Holy cow, I didn't expect that." And there were other things that you were like, "Wait a second, where's the donuts?" That you were like disappointed at because they didn't have them.
yeah, the Emmy Awards they don't they're totally different than Oscars. Emmys they didn't even have us on the regular because they got so many categories.
Mm.
They wouldn't have us the they had a thing called the Creative Arts Awards, and that's everybody that makes the actual show. And then there's the regular Emmys, which is the actors and the directors and maybe the producers. And they're completely different nights. They're completely different venues,
Mm.
completely different budgets. So that one's different. The more interesting one, and what will be interesting, I think, for your listeners, your viewers, is the Oscars because that's all one night, one place, and it's. I'd watched the Oscars many times. The first time I went, the first thing I was surprised was, wow, when people are walking down the red carpet, it's not on the sidewalk, it's the street. They close the whole damn street.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
And it's
Mm.
there you're walking down a street on that. And it was something to see. It really you don't get the sense of the scale and scope of it watching it on television. It is like something the Army Corps of Engineers is needed to do. There
Wow.
is an entire army of people to create this event. It's unbelievable. Your limousine or your vehicle, whatever you've come in to do, it stops right smack dab in the middle of Hollywood and Highland. If anybody
Wow.
watching this knows that, that's an extremely busy intersection, but it's
That's
all
in front of
closed.
the theater, right?
Well, no, the theater's down the street.
Okay.
Hollywood and Highland is the intersection. It's the main intersection in Hollywood.
Okay.
And so you go in there and everybody walks in. So you got the big actors and everybody and little small people like me. We all kind of go through the same gate there. You still got to go through
Uh-huh.
security and then you come out and there is a rope that goes down the middle of the red carpet. If you're nominated, you walk on the left side of the rope. If you're not nominated, even if you're Jack Nicholson, you walk on the right side of the rope.
Wow.
And the reason why that is so that you got all this press that's lined up, the paparazzi and everything else,
Uh-huh.
that's talking to all the nominees as they go along down the way. And there's a whole machine to how that works. And everybody else, they want you to, hey, go inside. They don't want you hanging out. So they try to keep you moving. It's kind of a weird thing.
Wow.
See all the cameras to see it's the probably one of the most complex live show events that there is.
there was a project that was the last time that you did a movie or a TV show. When you were doing it, did you know that it was going to be the last time?
No, no, everything changed. COVID changed everything for one. It
Uh-huh.
The last big film that I worked on was Space Jam 2.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that was going to be my last one. I've done some things. Like I just came back. They flew me out for the Star Trek cruise. So I was gone for a week out there putting makeups on passengers, making them up as Ferengis and Klingons and Vulcans.
Wow, that's
That was a
cool.
trip.
Is there an opportunity to work on a movie that if it showed up, you would like jump at it and say, yes, count me in? Maybe something that you'd even work on for free.
Yeah, there was. That was for me for wanting to work on an Indiana Jones film because I'm a huge fan of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Mm-hmm.
So I was lobbying for that one for a number of years. There was a friend
Oh,
of mine that was doing Harrison Ford, Michael Ladotti, great makeup artist, good human. And I was always telling him, say, hey, one of these days Harrison is going to do another Indiana Jones
uh-huh.
film. And when it is, I want to work on it. So I don't care where in the world you're going to shoot or whatnot. If I got to fly myself, whatever. But I want to work on that film. And one day he called me. He says, I've got good news and I've got bad news. I said, oh, yeah? What's what's up? He said, well, the good news is Harrison's doing another Indiana Jones movie. And I'm going, yes. He goes, the bad news is I'm not going to work on it.
Oh no.
I went, what? He says, no, I've decided that I'm stepping back from makeup and going to focus more on this other business he had going on. But he said the good thing is I'm handing it over to a guy named Bill Corso, which was a friend of mine that I
Cool.
knew. And I So, long story short, is Bill did bring me out, and I did work on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Unfortunately, it's not one of the better movies of the franchise, but it was great. The scenes that we shot on the back lot at Universal, that was the big kind of Mayan temple with all the natives running around with spears and Karen Allen yelling "Indy" and everybody
Uh-huh.
doing all of that. It felt like working on the Raiders of the Lost Ark. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that I got to work on that. Some of the film wasn't as much fun because of what's happened with the industry. There's a lot of secrecy
Oh.
because of cell phones and cameras and all that. There's so much
Oh.
more scrutiny on the crew, and they're
Gotcha.
just absolutely neurotically insane and paranoid
Wow.
about somebody leaking stuff, and so
Oh.
they spy on the crew.
Wow.
But anyway, there was the great things to be able to work on. Star Trek, I got to do that. That's from my childhood, so it's awesome.
I did not realize that the amount of overlap between the publishing company and the makeup business. Um, Tell me about the spark that made you say, "Wow, that's interesting." Like could I run a publishing company? Could I like this was actually so much earlier than I thought that the publishing industry when you were starting it out, that's like pre-internet. That's a completely different era. Walk me through like when you first spotted it and said, "I think that there's an opportunity to do something here."
Yeah, the way that came about is I was working in industry. I was being an award-winning makeup artist. Was very happy with my career as a makeup artist. I wasn't looking for some kind of career change,
Hmm.
but I just thought it was ridiculous that there wasn't a magazine that celebrated makeup artistry. I thought cosmetics is $1 billion business.
Yeah.
Why there it makes sense that there would be this. And so I thought, well, maybe I can do a little something on the side here on my kitchen table kind of thing while I have my makeup career. Maybe we can, just do that. And it was naive. I didn't know because I didn't know what was involved in it. I went to a couple of places that sold magazines and that were like industry stuff. I said, hey, if I did a magazine on makeup, would you sell it? And they go, yeah, sure, we'll sell it. So after a couple of those, I thought, I'm going to give this a shot because I didn't really have anything to lose. I
Yeah.
wasn't looking for it to be a revenue generating thing, or at least not a revenue source. There we go.
Yeah.
I didn't need for it to be a revenue source. I had a good
Yeah.
career. And so I put out the first issue and everybody just went, wow. The response to it was great in Hollywood. The the tough thing, like you alluded to, the internet was in its infancy. Email was kind of new. Search engines,
Yeah.
not really much happening there. And I was trying to figure out how in the world do I let the world know that this magazine exists. I know a lot more people would read it, and I know that there would be other companies that would be interested in advertising in it. So I thought, gosh, if we just have this neon sign turn on for the world and go Makeup Artist Magazine, they go, oh, there's a magazine for it.
Mm.
But so I started, getting the magazine out there. I remember issue two. Issue two, that was painful. I had to turn down a movie that I was asked to do, and that hurt. But after I've been doing it for a bit, I started talking to people who actually worked in the publishing industry that were publishing professionals as I fumble along. And I said, how do you promote a trade magazine? And they said, well, usually you go to trade shows. And I went, oh, well, that makes sense. So I started talking to my advertisers and saying, which trade shows do you participate in? Because wherever you're at, that's probably where we should be. And they said, well, we tried this show and we tried that show, but it's mostly about hair or it's mostly about salon stuff. And they said, actually, we really don't really do too many shows anymore.
Wow.
After about 10 phone calls like that, I realized this is crazy.
Yeah.
There needs to be a trade show for makeup artistry.
Wow.
Well, maybe I can do it. I know about lights and sound. I know about sound because of being a musician and
Mm.
getting to understand that side of it. I understand the basics of camera because I work in motion pictures. I know about doing live event things, and so there was enough of that I could draw upon my previous experience. I felt like I could do it. And I thought, I don't know if we're going to make any money, but I'm going to try it. So I did our very first show in 1997. Only did it as a one-day thing because we didn't know.
Yeah.
And we broke the attendance record for that facility.
Wow.
And people came from around the world.
Wow.
And
That's exciting.
that day, the world learned that there were a lot more makeup artists than anybody ever thought.
Yeah.
And it
That's
changed the industry that day. And so we started producing these shows, and eventually we were doing them around the world. We were doing LA, London, New York, Sydney, Australia. We did some Atlanta, Georgia, Toronto, and Vancouver, BC. We produced shows in all those places over the 25 years that we were doing it. And our bigger shows in New York and LA were drawing like 10,000 people, which is not a lot from if you got a boat show or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, for the market, that's a lot of people.
That was a tremendous
Uh,
amount of people.
but
And
you
so,
were also attracting people that were doing like sci-fi type stuff and beauty, right? Um, you were attracting people that were doing both sides. So they weren't, some of them weren't interested in what was going on the other side.
yeah, I always approached holistically looking at makeup, at the entire craft. There's some
Yeah,
people that want to specialize in one thing or another, but we wanted to keep the umbrella big to include everyone. Body painting, face painting. Um, there's a lot of folks in different aspects of it. But the show is really super successful. We created a competition called Battle of the Brushes that got a lot of people in this industry their start. People would come from around the world to compete to do makeups. And
Oh, that's a nice showcase. Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty incredible. There's people that are Oscar winners now that started off in our competitions.
Oh, that's amazing.
But a lot of people got their start in coming to IMATS, International Makeup Artist Trade Show. In case somebody wants to know what that stands for.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess I didn't mention that. I just called it
Yeah,
IMAT.
because you and I both know that, but I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah, yeah.
somebody's going to know.
Okay, so okay, one, how did you pick which cities you were going to go to? Because I didn't expect Atlanta. And two, I know that they were different size shows. Like New York and LA were like the big ones. But were there any places that it was kind of surprising the amount of enthusiasm or, that you're like, man, this is a smaller show, but man, it's a banger. I am having a great time here and I just look forward to coming to this one.
Okay, let me take the first part. Why did I choose certain cities?
Hmm.
The rules I had to do an IMAT show. One, there has to be a film community in that city,
Okay.
and hopefully that there's prosthetics, there's beauty and editorial makeup, there's theater makeup, that you have all of those legs under the table. That had to be. It also had to be an English speaking part of the world. I did not want to
Okay.
produce a show through interpreters.
Yeah. Okay.
It's hard enough trying to produce a show in a foreign country. To do that
Yeah,
now
yeah.
with interpreters, nah, I'm not doing it. And then the third one was it had to be a place I wanted to go to every year.
Oh, okay, cool. That is,
I don't want to
I'm
do a
good with
show.
that one. I'm good with all three of those. Okay, tell me, was there a city that just didn't make it that you were like, man, I want to do a show there. I should do a show there, but for whatever reason, it didn't get done?
Atlanta was only 2 years, but that's because not because it didn't have all the ingredients it did. In fact, that's where there's so much film that's done today. It would have been very good, but what started changing is the way that people interact. Social media changed everything. Social
Okay.
media was what was the chronic disease that killed my magazine is social media.
Oh.
People don't really read magazines now, and social media was the beginning of the end for that. But also, social media changed. People started getting their itch scratched in a different way, so they weren't coming to trade shows as much. They felt like they could get their itch scratched watching something on YouTube or
Yeah.
some other way. So Atlanta was more short-lived because of a change in culture, not because it wasn't a great city for makeup artistry. We did do Sydney for a while, and that's a long ways to go. So
That's a long
for
one.
my exhibitors to travel and all of that, but it just became cost prohibitive. And that's why we stopped doing that one, and then we started doing Atlanta.
Oh.
But no, they were all good. Like Vancouver, BC was a wonderful little show. Never had a big crowd. Had a consistent crowd, but they're doing important work there. They do a
Hmm.
lot of television, and it's a city people like to be at.
Okay. Cool. What question were you expecting me to ask that I have not asked?
Oh, you asked almost nothing about the magazine, and very little about. We spent 2 minutes on the shows. We've talked mostly about my makeup career, and that's okay. It's whatever.
Well,
You know your
yeah, yeah,
audience, you know what you're aiming for, so that's
yeah,
all good.
yeah. Mostly, I want people to. I think that the way that you think and the way that people approach their lives and work through um, the problems that all of these industries have is super interesting. And and as you were working through that, plus I know that like at the very beginning when I asked you, which of these movies was the most challenging, and you said, "Wow, I'm used to people asking me what was my favorite," and I'm like, that was actually honestly a little piece of why I didn't ask it because I'm sure that these questions get asked, and I'm really trying to um, I want to create a project where, like, I'm planning to do 3 to 5 interviews a week, right?
Oh,
Not
wow.
this long, but I can have I could have a conversation like this 5 times a week, and I would be totally good with it. I'd be energized. The whole gist of it is that I want a place where people can go and they can hit play. They looked at ice climbing and they said, "Well, that's interesting," and 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 they had to go through a process, an iterative process, to go from sucking to not sucking, and embracing that, like, so that when they're actually struggling, there are people that go, "Oh, this is normal." People that win, they struggle until they stop struggling, and it sucks until it stops sucking. And what does winning look like? Is there a moment where you realize, gosh, it's working? Like
Mhm.
when you look back and you go, holy cow, like it feels like I'm chasing the horizon, but you look back and you go, oh my gosh, I've traveled over many, 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 mountains, and I'm still excited. Like, this is what's ahead, and that's kind of why I'm approaching it. And some of it obviously is also because I was actually kind of ignorant of some of the overlap and some of that. So
Well, this probably dovetails into how people get into the industry. And that's
yeah,
something that folks don't really
that was super
fully
interesting. I was
understand.
very happy with that. Yeah.
If you are going to be an accountant or a lawyer, then you have a linear path. You get good grades in
Mm.
school,
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
get to a really good university, you do well
Yes.
there and get good grades, and then you get out and then you get hired by a firm, and then you climb the ladder at the firm. Very linear. Creative people do not have a linear path.
Yes.
It's more crooked. It's like a dog's hind leg. It's all over the place.
Yes.
I've interviewed hundreds of film professionals in my career. I never found any two that were alike.
Mm.
Creative people have an organic path to success or organic path to getting to what they want to do.
Yeah.
And it is a very big who you know business. But what I
Mm.
did find out, the two ingredients that were in every story of anybody I ever interviewed, there was opportunity and there was preparation.
Yeah.
When both those came together, then there was a chance for success.
Yes.
There's times when opportunity comes, but you're not prepared,
Oh,
and you don't know you don't may not recognize the opportunity, and so you don't do anything with it, or you're just not prepared for it, and so it doesn't happen. Or there's also people that are already, yep, they've got everything all together and they're prepared, but they don't have the opportunity. They're waiting for the opportunity to be
yeah.
able to prove themselves and whatnot. So you need both those. And then young people that are trying to do it, it's helping them to understand both those, the preparation and the opportunity for it. It happens when you're least expecting it. You can be at the grocery store at the vegetable aisle, and then all of a sudden there's somebody in the aisle that can actually change your entire your career, can make your career happen.
Mm.
But if you
Uh-huh.
don't
For
recognize who
sure.
that person is, if you're trying to be an actor and you don't recognize that, oh, there's Brad Pitt. If you don't know who he is, then you
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
passed you by.
Yeah.
It's one, you just have to know. And sometimes it's just being in the right place, the right time. Nick Dudman, who was the makeup artist behind the Harry Potter films, he came to my London show once and he said, Michael, I'm going to do a terrible impersonation of Nick. He says, I'm doing this film in between Harry Potter movies. It's going to be done in Europe, and I need like 20 makeup artists or something. And so I'm going to be looking for them. I'm only going to hire people that are at your show this weekend. And I said, wow, thank you. Why? He says, because if they're home watching television instead of being at your show learning,
Yeah.
then those are people, not the people I want. I want the people that are
Such a
here.
good point.
And I went, that's smart.
Such a good point. I have 5 grandkids, and a huge driver for this podcast is I want to have stories about how people win, right? And so I can see a handful of your stories being inspiring for people to keep their heads up and keep their eyes open, keep looking for those opportunities. That going out and hustling is normal. A lot of A-list actors still have to do some hustling and still have to show up and do test, you know,
Mhm.
test auditions. Um, but so I told 2 of my granddaughters that I was having this interview, and I said, "Do you have a question or two?" So these are the questions. Okay, this one comes from my 7-year-old granddaughter. Have you ever made someone look like a shark?
I didn't make a person look into a shark, but the very first job that I got to be paid for in this industry, there was, in fact, I alluded to it earlier. They needed to make a big shark for this commercial that was going to eat a microwave oven. And so I helped make this really, really big shark. I
Uh
was
huh.
brand spanking new. I was green as could be. And but I sent you some of the pictures that are in that folder that I sent you.
I
Of me,
can't wait
me
to go
with the
through it.
shark. There's a picture of me in the my head coming out of the mouth of the shark and whatnot.
Did you have to put prosthetics on anybody to make them look like a shark, though?
No, no.
No? Okay. My 9-year-old granddaughter said, "Have you ever done makeup on a kid?"
Oh, yeah, many times. I didn't do any children that I remember on the Grinch. I did for Santa Claus 3. I did different kids as elves, so they got
Got
the
it. Oh,
little
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
rosy cheeks and whatnot. So I made up kids for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they can only have them for
Right.
so long. There's very, very strict rules in filming.
Oh, got it. Okay, so her second question was, what is the least used color in the special effects makeup kit?
There's no such thing. Every
Okay.
color is used. I
Okay.
worked on Star Trek for 7 years, and so
Uh-huh.
we're coming up with aliens of the week,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we used every single color and pattern imaginable. I had books that were like exotic fish, sea fish. What do you call them? Sea
Oh,
fish,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
saltwater
I
fish,
gotcha.
saltwater fish,
Uh-huh.
reptiles. All these different books with different things from nature to use for inspiration. So we used every single color.
So, would you speak directly to the kid that has experienced that spark of intrigue? What if they wanted to follow a path in life that someone that of someone that's in a creative field? What would you tell them to encourage them for when things get tough? Because things are going to get tough. How would you encourage them when they're struggling and wondering, should I keep going?
If you want to work in a creative industry, especially if you're a young person, you probably don't look at it from the position of does that industry need you? You're just thinking of what you like to do.
Mm.
And it's important to think about does the industry need you? Because you're trying to figure out what you're going to fit in. Having a career, that's a path, that's a lifelong thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
So if you have something that you really enjoy, will you get more fulfillment out of it having it as a hobby or being a volunteer rather
Mm.
than to make it what pays your bills? You make
Yeah.
me like baseball. If you think, wow, baseball, I love baseball, I'm going to be a baseball player. That's a tough road. There's only so many
Yeah.
people they allow on that team. And you have to beat out a lot of people to be the person that's on that
Yeah.
team. And maybe you do that. And that's great if you're that person. But if you just really like playing baseball, you might enjoy it at a different level.
Yeah.
In regards to doing something like makeup, which is, my forte, you might enjoy working in local theater in doing that. You might have something where you're volunteering. Like I volunteer at church, I play guitar, so I play on the worship team.
Yeah.
When I first started in life, I wanted to be a professional musician. And I went for 10 years going with my heart and soul to do that. Everything that I did was to try to make that goal. But 10 years into it, I realized that the system in which people succeed was not a predictable trajectory for a career. You might make it, you might not. And that's pretty much all creative sides of industry of what that is. And even if you do make it, you might not be able to go on an entire career doing it. It might sometimes be short lived. So what's really good is to be able to see yourself truly, talk to people that know what they're talking about, wise people, and get that input, and then figure out where does it fit for your life. What's going to ultimately be the best choice for you.
All right, Michael Key. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you making the time and extending the making yourself available to go much longer.